And I think that was when I first started to question myself, my identity. Who am I? What label do I wear? And why do I wear it? What did this label say Asian? Because of my friends. Did this label say British? Because of where I was born. Who was I? And what impact was this going to play in my life? I finished the first year of university, then second year came. And second year you have to live out, you don't get a place in halls of residence. So you generally move in with your friends. My friends are Muslim, so I moved in with some Muslims. Some of them would go clubbing, some of them would be practicing. But one thing they kind of had in common, that when they were amongst each other, they would talk about Islam. They would carry dawah. And when they were with me, they would also talk about Islam. That even the most jahil from amongst them, that before he would go clubbing, you'd find him praying Maghrib. It seems a bit strange, but you'd find him praying Maghrib. And he'd speak to me. And he'd say, don't look at me and judge Islam. You know, I need to sort myself out. So he was of that kind of thinking as well. The brothers from the Islamic Society, they would sometimes come round and hold discussion circles in our flat. And if I didn't have anything better to do, I'd give them 5 minutes, I'd have a listen. And I remember one conversation I had with one of these brothers. And he was asking me to describe myself. How do I identify myself? And there I was, almost like hand on heart, I'm Asian. And he said to me, what if you were born into, say, a white Christian family? Would you still be Asian? And I was like, it's an interesting question. I never actually thought about it from that level. And then he asked me, how does being Asian help me live my life? How does it define for you the purpose of your life? How does it determine for you what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad? Then he said to me that, you know, surely your identity, it should be shaped by what you believe and not by the color of your skin or where you came from. And then he started to talk to me about Islam and how he was very much the same. He didn't quite know who he was until he came across Islam. That Islam, it transcended color and nationality, how it defined the purpose of our life. And then he said a few things to me which were slightly strange at the time. That he said that Islam is not a chance thing. It's not something that you're just born into. But Islam is, and he used this particular term, he says Islam is a rational creed. A rational creed. I.e. is something that you can arrive at through studying your reality. Now I was getting intrigued. And I think my journey to Islam, it had begun now. And over the year, I started to spend more time with the brothers, and I started to ask them more and more questions. Yes, I still went clubbing, but it wasn't feeling right. It didn't feel like it did the year before. That surely my existence had to be more than just going out and getting drunk. Or my existence was more than just working hard and gaining a good degree so I can get a good job, so I can earn lots of money, so that I can buy lots of nice things. Then there were a couple of events, and these really tipped the balance in the favor of Islam. Firstly, one of my close friends, he was Christian, Desmond his name was, and he took his Shahada. And for me this was a shock, because we'd spent a lot of time together, and we'd often talk about Islam as well. But he'd actually gone and taken his Shahada. And I remember speaking to him afterwards, saying that, you know, I can't actually refute what these Muslims are saying as well. But are you sure are you sure you know what you're doing? That you're going to have to give up this and give up that? But you can see in him a sense of tranquility and the fact that he was convinced. Then there was another event that took place, that I met a brother. And we're in the third year of university, so he's applying for jobs and the like now. And he comes up to me and says, I've just sent off my application form for this job. And it was like a banking type of a job. And I remember saying to him that you can't do this kind of job because it is haram in Islam. So I even used the word haram. And he turned around and he said to me, you're not even Muslim, but you seem to know more about Islam than me. And really this got me thinking, that who am I to tell him what to do? Why am I telling him what to do? Why am I telling him about Islam? Why am I carrying to him a dawah for Islam when I'm not even Muslim? And I think that was when, for me, the penny dropped, that Islam is the truth. I had to worship that creator who gave me life. And then on February 1997, I took my Shahada. And as people ask you, so did things change for you? Seems like a strange question that you sometimes get asked. Yes, they did change. That Islam, it gave me a new identity, a new outlook on life. Identity not shaped by the color of my skin or the place of my birth, but I chose to control my identity, and I chose Islam. I remember one of the first things that the brothers did was they took me to Regent's Park Mosque, because it was Ramadan during that time. And I remember meeting brothers who were from Indonesia, from Turkey, from Africa, and from Arabia. And they hugged me and they embraced me like we'd known each other for years, even though we didn't share the same skin color, the same language, or the same place of birth. And I also remember my first Jummah, the first time I went to Jummah at the university. I remember sitting there not really knowing what was going to happen, but the Khatib, he was speaking about Islam. And I looked around at the brothers, and I remember thinking, I know him, seen him before, and I've seen him somewhere as well, but I couldn't quite picture where I'd seen them. And then it clicked that I'd seen them at the same Bhangra and R&B gigs that I used to go to. That even though they were Muslim, that they had been born and raised in Muslim households, they were still seduced by the same Asian culture that had captivated me for many years. So I spoke to them afterwards with whatever I knew and whatever I understood about Islam. And I noticed that they had a sense of regret. And alhamdulillah, some of them, they started to mend their ways, they started to sort themselves out. And to be honest, this is one of the points which I want you to take from my talk today. Because many people, they go to revert talks and they go home and they say, MashaAllah, MashaAllah, look at that brother. Or look at how he embraced Islam. He chose Islam. He's much better than me. He arrived at his faith, whereas I'm born Muslim. It's almost like being born a Muslim is an excuse. That you don't necessarily need to practice, or you're not expected to do so much because you never arrived at faith yourself. And I don't want anyone here to use the fact that they were born Muslim as their excuse. Because on Yawm al-Qiyamah, it's every man and woman for themselves. Will be held to account for every action, even if it is the weight of the mustard seed. And was it not Muslims? Muslims like you, born in Muslim families, who were busy with their studies, who were busy with life, but they found time to talk about Islam, to carry this message, to carry this dawah, and to conduct themselves in a manner befitting of the Muslims. Yes, times are tough. You can't come across a program on the TV or an article which isn't demonizing Islam. Islam is backwards, barbaric, bloodthirsty, medieval, and the like. Sometimes you just want to bury your head in the sand. You know, change your name from Muhammad to Malcolm, from Aisha to something else. But these tough times, they require that we raise our game. Because we have a duty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He placed on our shoulders a duty to carry this message, to refute the negative propaganda, and to strengthen around us those Muslims who may be wavering. Yes, alhamdulillah, it is with the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I sit before you today as a Muslim. But we shouldn't forget those brothers and sisters who spoke to me about Islam, who carried themselves in a manner which is befitting of the Muslims. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blesses them, and He rewards them, and He gives them a portion from any good that I do until I die. So brothers and sisters, my final advice to you is that you go out and you learn about your deen. Then you practice what you learn. And then you carry this far and wide. And rest assured that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your protector. And can there be any better protection than the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? أقول لي قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم.